Good morning, it's Tess, and today is tip 197, and I'm calling it Your Life Can and Will Sometimes Change in an Instant. And this kind of came to me this morning because Doc V had a David Goggins video for us to listen to this morning, and I really like David Goggins. And Tony Robbins talks a lot about, too, your life can change in an instant, so that comes up in a lot of different books and materials that we all read. And so what I did is I was listening to it while I was walking this morning. And when I got back, I thought, I'm going to research your life changing in an instant. Well, it always surprises me sometimes that the information I get doesn't always match what I may be thinking at that particular moment. And this kind of talked about really the first article that popped up was by someone, and I like this name, Omar Itani, and it was from August of 2020, which I figured was during the time of the pandemic, so I was kind of interested to see what he'd write about. And it was titled, Your Life Can Change in an Instant. And what he kind of talked about, and I found it interesting, he was talking about it during the time of the pandemic, but he was talking about how his life changed in a moment, in an instant, and it changed back in the days of the bombing in Beirut. And kind of what happened is that he at the time lived 8,000 miles away, and that Beirut was the third largest explosion in human history. But why it was so meaningful to him is that he had family there. He had his grandmother lived there. He had family and friends there. And he said that he went through that period of like 24 hours trying to find people. It was trauma, it was fear, it was devastation. What sense is there to this? You know, how does he move forward? You know, he's so many miles away, there's nothing he can do, but life changed in an instant. He thought he was going to have a normal day writing, and all of a sudden he's facing all these crazy things. Basically what he said is that what sense is there to make of it? You just have to surrender. And he kind of took a quote from Eckhart Tolle. Surrender is the simple but profound wisdom of yielding to rather than opposing the flow of life. So he basically, good morning, Rachel, good to see you. So he's basically saying that sometimes we just can't fight it. We just have to roll with it. And it kind of made me start to look at things in a little bit of a different way, because I was approaching it from the, like David Goggins, Tony Robbins, you can decide right now to make a change. Well, he's kind of right. Sometimes change is forced upon us. So I guess the best gift we can give ourselves is to be prepared so that no matter what we face, we're ready to roll with it. And basically he said, fighting what is useless. It creates pain. Just surrender. Figure out what you're going to do to move forward and move on. And that's so true, because so many things, COVID, 2020, you know, you can fight it, you can be angry, you can be fearful, you can be mad, or you can just roll with it. What choice do you want to make? There's nothing you can do to change it, so just figure out a way to make it work for you. You just have to yield to what is, pick up the pieces, make the best of it, and move forward. Good morning, Lori. Good to see you. So basically his summation is, I do what I can with what I have to help whomever I can, wherever I am. That is the way of this life. And I thought that was so meaningful, because someone who faced Beirut and then actually was in the middle of COVID had such profound words for us. Do what we can with what we have to help whomever we can, wherever we are. That is the way of life. He kind of had a quote that I thought was meaningful. There are moments which mark your life, moments when you realize nothing will be the same, and that time is divided into two parts, the before and the after. What I decided to do kind of to finish this talk up is that, and it had a couple of interesting things come of it, but I thought, are we stuck in the before? And how do we get into the after so that we can say this is what happened and we move forward? So I went back to looking at articles on Your Life Can Change in a Minute, and I found an article called 7 Tips for When Life Changes in an Instant. And it was a woman called Allison Sue and The Compass of My Life. And her article was interesting to me because she's a Navy person, and my childhood best friend has been in the Navy for almost 30 years now. And I thought, what kind of pointers does she have? Because she said that in cases she would have to move cross country in 3 days because she was from a military family. And so she kind of had 7 pointers on how to just move forward in an instant. Sometimes you just have to be able. She said so many people said they couldn't live the life she had. And she said, you just adapt. You do what you have to do. And her number one thing, all of us have heard this before from Robin Sharma, from, and Lori Halter will know, but, and I have it around here somewhere, but there's another book about morning routines. We all know morning routines are very important. I do have a morning routine. I love to get up in the morning and I like to walk with the sun rising. There are bunnies. I like to watch the bunnies. And actually, it's kind of funny. This morning, my bunnies disappeared halfway through my route, but I had a repeat of a week ago. There was a cat or a kitten. It was a young kitten. It was really well fed, but it followed me, and it followed me so much I had to rewalk a block because I didn't want it to get lost. I could tell that it was well fed. I could tell that it had a home, but I just have something, animals like me, I like animals, and it just kept walking with me. So finally I had to kind of like try to ignore it because it was just, and it was so funny because it did the same thing the cat last week did, walked side by side with me as I was headed somewhere. But by the time the second time came around, it kind of stopped, and I got halfway down the block and I looked back, and as soon as I looked back, it started to come at me again. I'm like, oh, I've got to stop looking at it because it wants to play. So I got him back home so I could go home myself. But that morning routine to me means a lot. I love to watch the sunrise. I mean, there's something meditative, there's something exciting, there's something hopeful in that to me. And then bunnies. I love to watch count the bunnies. There have been days I've counted 13 of them in the morning. So it's so much fun, and it starts my day happy, joyful, and with a win. It says now the next thing it talked about. So number 1 is start your day with a routine. So set up a routine, whatever you can do, because it said make sure it's a routine you can do no matter where you are, no matter what you face, no matter what changes. Because even last week when I was in New York, I did follow my routine in the morning. Number 2, mindset check-in. Studies show 70% of our thoughts are negative. We've talked about that a lot in Doc V's group. Get rid of those negative thoughts. They actually mentioned something that those of us in the tribe with Doc V have actually listened to the video on. Mel Robbins does a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And that's a way to release negative thoughts so you can push yourself forward. We also know that meditating, journaling, affirmations, those will help you to clean out. Doc V's fat filters, you got to take the negative thoughts, release them, and bring in the positive thoughts that will support you going forward. So we know that's important. Number 3, she says, again, these are like part of our fundamentals with Doc V. We have our morning routine. We do our mindfulness check-in, which is to meditate and release negative thoughts. Number 3 is journaling. And we know that's part of our fundamentals, gratitude journaling. She uses journaling for life goals and to get things out. And her third thing, and this was kind of wow for me, she said, you need to ask what can I questions. And she referred to a book that's come up about 4 times probably in the last 2 weeks for me. Chris Nagle was talking about it last week when I was in training. But this is the book, The One Thing by Gary Keller. Lori Halter and I were talking about it yesterday. Chris talked about it several times last weekend, and I'm like, it came up in this article too. So this book has now come to the lead where I have to read it. But what she says is that in using what she learned from this book, she asks what can I questions as part of her journaling every day. So I'll let you know what I think of this book as I read it, because I know that if something comes up in my life multiple times, I have to address something or use it as a tool to move myself in another direction. And that's at least 3, but I think it's more than 3 times that book's come up in the past 2 weeks. So I need something out of it, so I better get to reading it. The next thing it said is having grace. And grace kind of goes in with our fundamentals too, which is be thankful and grateful. And I do that in my journaling every day. Be thankful and grateful. It says having grace also to her means giving yourself a chance to change. And what she kind of referred to is that When she's forced to change because her family is military, it takes 2 to 2.5 weeks for a change. Give yourself a chance to recognize that change. So she said, and this almost goes back to the Robin Sharma book and also the book that I was mentioning, and I'll put it in the comments, that Chris Noggle introduced us to in group coaching. But setting your day up, you want to, changing a habit. Robin Sharma is big on changing a habit. 22 days is hard. 22 days is messy. Then the next 22 days sets you into a habit where it starts to feel good. She kind of talks about for her, because she has to adjust so fast and so often, she finds that she feels out of sorts for about 2.5 weeks before she starts to find a routine. I think that's where many of us go wrong with our weight loss journey, is we expect to feel good in it the next day, and any change takes a little bit of adjustment. So if you can give yourself the chance to use the routine and stick to it no matter what, put your mind check in so that you know, are you thinking positive or negative? Are you making this harder than it needs to be because you're focusing on the negative? And giving yourself grace, giving yourself a chance to make the change. It will be messy at first, but the reward at the end will be well worth it. And I know that that's true for me. I had to make a lot of changes in the beginning of COVID, and overcoming negative self-talk was probably the hardest thing I've ever done. I had to listen to video after video, write journal after journal, trying to get rid of the negative self-talk. And I'm so glad I did, because I didn't fall into the traps that so many have. Notice that there's chaos, but take control of it. And I think that's where giving yourself a break and giving yourself some time to adjust is so critical. This woman also said she chooses personal growth, and most of us that probably are even listening to this right now are part of the tribe, or Chris's group, or with Doc V's group. We choose personal growth because we know that it feels good. It makes us feel like we're progressing towards a better future. And this woman said the other thing is to find joy in the small things. And for me, starting every day with the sunrise, walking, greeting my bunnies every morning, and then today walking with the cat that just wanted to become my friend, are great, joyful things to me. It, to me, warms my heart to share with Mother Nature, to share, you know, to see the beauty and the gifts that that God has given us. And I find so much comfort in that. Starting a day, a beautiful sunrise, a few animals, some flowers, and it just starts it in the most amazing way. So the last thing she says is something a lot of us are doing too: online communities. There's some connection in that. It prevents isolation. We know life changes in an instant, and if we all connect together and share our experiences with each other, we can help each other to overcome our obstacles. So I'll go over those 7 changes real quick. Number 1 is stick to routines, and most of us have morning routines or we're working on them. I highly recommend it. Hello. Number 2 is mindfulness check-in. If you got negative self-talk going on, get rid of it. Find things to be positive about. There's a lot of good things. Journal. And this one talked about ask a lot of what can I questions, and she referred to this book by Gary Keller, The One Thing. And this book has been brought to my attention about 4 times in the past 2 weeks, so I got to read it, and I'll let you know what I think about it. Number 4, having grace. Forgive yourself. Change takes time, but accept that it takes time and stick with it, because within a couple of weeks, you might start to feel a little bit of a routine, and it won't feel so foreign or uncomfortable. Number 5, choose personal growth. It feels good to choose personal growth. It feels like you have control, and it feels like you have a brighter future. Find joy in the little things. I've mentioned that. I love Mother Nature, flowers, sitting outside, listening to a bird chirp. I love all that. I find joy and comfort in that. And online communities. That's what we're all here for, is to share with each other. Like I found in researching Your Life Can Change in a Minute, it can change because you don't know. Like going into COVID, like when the towers were collapsed in New York, or whether it was this gentleman who had family in Beirut and he had to face that period of time where he didn't know if his family members were alive. Our life can change in an instant because of that. And our life can also change in an instant because we decided to take control and we decided to make our health and our future better. One day we're all going to get together if we can take little steps every day to make our lives better, we'll even be more happy to share what our journey's been when we do get together face to face. Thank you for everything, you guys. I appreciate you, and I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful Sunday. Thank you.